All right. So the next thing that I want to just cover tonight is this idea of what can your affinity groups do that is virtually based or digitally based or in your dispersed communities, because many of our groups, everyone lives all over the place, right? And you meet virtually online. So this is a great question, and there are about 1 billion answers to it. But what I'm gonna do is share a few ideas, and then I'm gonna invite you to help brainstorm more. We've already had some great ideas that have come up and been reported on tonight, so I know you're full of them. So in the toolbox of nonviolent action, there is just so many ideas that we can tap into, more than I could list tonight, and I did try to list all the ones I could think of. You can do things like, for example, creating objects that can be displayed at an important national event. When Campaign Nonviolence held a protest at Los Alamos for the 70th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we worked with Buddhist communities around the world to send us 70,000 paper cranes that were then hung all over the actual exact location where the bombs were built. So that is a great example of a dispersed action that came together at a concentrated moment. And that's something your affinity group could also be part of. You know, there's some classic tactics that have been used over and over again since the internet really, came on the scene of activism, including writing a sign and holding it up and posting that online. Simple, but effective, right? Your affinity group could decide to do a shared action, but each person doing it in their own community. For example, the youth collective did acts of kindness and mutual aid last year, where every single one of them did a slightly different mutual aid action in each one of their towns and communities. They took a photo of themselves doing it, and then they created a video that shared, 6 or 7 different actions happening and circulated that. The culture jamming team collaborated on a digital campaign to create a social justice themed holiday shopping guide. In this case, it was peace and nonviolence gifts, right? So we used a moment of the holidays to raise people's awareness. This is a creative one. In all of our communities, you can symbolically rename streets or parks or whatever. In this particular case, some folks renamed a sewage outfall after Boris Johnson, which was a conduit of effluent to become his lasting memorial. So a little humor went a long way, but you can do it in a much more solemn and heartfelt way too. So, your affinity group could decide to each choose a tree in your community to be tree of the year, right? And do a whole campaign around that. I'm sure you can think of variations that are specific to what you're working on. Everyone could go out and sidewalk chalk. For example, you could brainstorm a list of slogans or messages, and then each person could go out and do the sidewalk chalking messages. You can also deliver symbolic objects to decision makers. So even though you're not in the same community, you could decide that you're going to deliver contaminated fracking water, in this case, to city officials, or you could symbolically deliver a shell casing to your local official and say you need to ban assault rifles, right? Don't bring the gun, they will arrest you for that. You could do pop-up art displays. This one, it happens to be a illicit sculpture that was put up in a Portland park to honor the Black explorer who was accompanying Lewis and Clark. But you could honor nonviolence heroes. You can hand out flyers at events, right? You can go to farmers markets, school events. You can create a shared flyer on a topic in your affinity group, and then each go out and disperse those individually in your communities and report back. One of the things that I'm participating in actually in the coming weeks is a pop-up art display for climate justice images. So I ordered the climate posters, they're shipping them to my house, and I'm going to put them up on the road outside here. And hundreds of other people are doing this all over the country. It's not an affinity group specifically, but it could be something your affinity group does. And, you know, you can always hold simultaneous solo demonstrations or vigils in your community. An affinity group is really good about giving us the courage and the moral support and the encouragement and the place to report back and share what we're doing that helps us have that little bit of for courage to get out there and do it. You know, Greta Thunberg was an affinity group of one when she sat outside the Parliament building holding this sign. And I think it's important to remember that individual actions can have power, but affinity groups are really here to give us more support in taking those actions. So I'm going to pause there, and there are a lot more ideas, and I would love to hear from you about them. So I'm just going to grab a second link and give you a chance to add to the list that we can share with everybody else in the affinity groups. So I'm going to put this into the chat box. If you click on this Google Doc link, you can go add to it.